Wir bleiben weiter auf der Leitung mit Israel und heißen unseren nächsten ganz besonderen Gast des Tages, Natan Sharansky, willkommen. Herr Sharansky musste sich im Laufe seines Lebens zahlreichen Herausforderungen stellen und hat sie mit Bravour bewältigt. Weltweit wurde Herr Sharansky damit bekannt, dass er sich als sowjetischer Dissident und sogenannter Refusenik engagiert hat. Sharansky war während der kommunistischen Diktatur 9 Jahre im sibirischen Gulag inhaftiert. Im Jahre 1986 wurde er nach Berlin geflogen und im Rahmen eines Agentenaustausches auf der Gliniker Brücke gegen einen sowjetischen Spion ausgetauscht. Daraufhin wanderte Herr Sharansky nach Israel aus. Hochkarätiger israelischer Politiker und ehemaliger jahrelanger Vorsitzender der Jewish Agency for Israel ist heute mit uns live dabei. Heute ist Herr Sharansky Vorsitzender des Institutes of the Study of Global Antisemitism and Policy. Wir fühlen uns sehr glücklich und sehr geehrt, heute mit Herrn Sharansky ins Gespräch zu kommen und mehr über seine Perspektiven auf diverse Herausforderungen zu erfahren. Das Gespräch wird gleich in englischer Sprache stattfinden. Shalom, dear Mr. Sharansky.
Shalom, Nastya. Greetings from Jerusalem.
It's so great to see you right now.
I'm glad you invited me for your program.
We have a larger international audience watching us right now. Dear viewers, if you want to, you can use our chat to address any questions you want to Mr. Sharansky. Mr. Sharansky, how are you doing these days? And what would you like to share with our audience?
Thank you. I'm doing well and I feel well as one should when he or she is in Jerusalem. Dear friends, the first wave of Corona is behind us. We are now coping with the second wave. But I think it's a good time for all of us to think, what are the lessons? What are the experiences which we learn from these days? And I think there are at least two seemingly opposite but important messages. One is about particularism, about importance of the family, of the community, of the home, of the country. You know, when Israel first closed its international borders for the airplanes from the other countries, there was a lot of criticism. But those countries which didn't do it, or did 2 weeks later, paid a very big price for this. It became clear that in order to deal with this problem, you first of all have to concentrate on your own country. Then it appeared that communities have to be separated. Then the gatherings have to be stopped. And then you have to be, in fact, arrested or closed in your own house. My home is my fortress, the famous proverb, British. Now it became reality for all of us. And we, in order to defeat this global enemy, everybody had to be, first of all, in his or her own house. And you feel importance of connection with the grandchildren. You feel the importance of the family, of the community that supports you, of your country. So that is the first message, reminding us about the importance of the family. But the second is, the God is sending us clear message. These are the wars in which you can win only together. It is the challenge for all of you. And you have to open all your borders. We all saw what happened when there was an informational border between China and the rest of the world. And the world was not prepared for these. And we here in Israel see unprecedented cooperation between East Jerusalem and West Jerusalem and helping to the people who are with this challenging problem of Corona. And there is cooperation between some Arab countries and Israel, which never happened before in history, because we all understand that the enemy that we have to fight together. So at the same time, we have the universal message of cooperation all together, and particular message that your home, and in fact your identity, is something very important for you. And that's in fact the lesson of all my life. And I have to say that is the challenge for young Jews all over the world today, because again and again I hear that young Jews are challenged. Are you particularist or you universalist? Just now we have demonstrations against racism in America. And of course every Jew is against racism. And our heart with those black people who suffer in this case. But the organization which is leading many of the demonstrations, Black Lives Matter, is openly anti-Israel, is supporting boycott of Israel. There are many outstanding anti-Semites who are activists in this organization. And then when you say to yourself, well, should they participate in the demonstration of this organization? Then someone tells you, well, wait, aren't you universalist? How you can be particularist in that moment when we are fighting against such a noble fight against racism? And that's absolutely false choice which somebody makes you to do. Yes, there is no contradiction in being universalist, fighting for human rights, for justice for everybody, and at the same time to be proud Jew and proud supporter of Jewish state. I found out how close these two things are when I was in the Soviet Union. In the days of communist ideology was ruling and already had millions of people as victims of this ideology. And the ideology was simple. There is class struggle between oppressed, poor, and oppressors. And we have to destroy these oppressors. And that's a universal struggle of all oppressed people. And that's why anything that divides these people should be removed. Nationality should be removed. Religion should be removed. Differences in property should be removed. The state will own everything and will decide to whom to give what. And I was one of millions of absolutely assimilated Soviet Jews. There was absolutely nothing Jewish in our life. Not language, not tradition, not history, not faith, not Brit Milah, not Bar Mitzvah. Absolutely, totally assimilated Soviet Jews. Well, and of course, but there was one Jewish thing, anti-Semitism. And there was understanding that you're not in the free country. You can't say what you really think. But to think maybe you should fight for your right to speak freely, you're not thinking about it because the only value in your life is survival. How you can survive in spite of this communist ideology and in spite of the fact that you're Jewish and there is anti-Semitism. And you're trying to survive through being good professional, somehow to admission. When you really start, feel strength to start fighting, when through Israel we discovered our identity, we discovered that there is history that is so interesting, and there is, and you want to be part of this history. That there are people scattered all over the world, but they're coming as tourists from different parts of the world and say, oh, your father is from Odessa and my father is from Odessa. We are family, we want to help. And you find out there is a state which is ready to send airplanes to the end of the world, but to help. That's what I mean identity. And the moment you discover your identity, the moment you know that's place where you want to be, that's your family, that's your history, you have strength to fight for your right to be part of this world. And then you start fighting for your rights, for rights of the other Jews, and then for rights of everybody. And that's how I became activist of two movements, Zionist movement and democratic movement in the Soviet Union. And when so many people are saying, but choose, are you particulars or you're a universalist? I knew it's the wrong question. If I have strength to fight for universal ideas, for freedom for Armenians and Lithuanians and Christians and Crimea Tatars, it's only because I discovered my identity and I have strength to be a free person. And unfortunately now communism is defeated, the world is free, millions of Jews left Soviet Union, more than 1 million came to Israel. And it seems that the communism is the past. But somehow in this new world, these ideas of communism, of seeing the world through the prism of oppressed against oppressors, and seeing the world, ideal world, without identities, without religion. Imagine the world where there is nothing to fight for. It became the ideal. And in this postmodern world, Israel, which insists we are Jewish and democratic state, looks like a remnant of the colonial past. What means Jewish? Who needs today national states? And especially the Jewish state in the Middle East, which causes so many problems. Can't you be simply abstract democratic state without any identity, and then we'll have no problem? That's what we hear. And as a result, Israel is pushed by some people, and young people are pushed by, young Jews are pushed to choose between their identity and universal values. And then again, I went through many campuses in America and in Europe. And then again, young Jews are asked, are you universalists or are you particularists? And the only answer which can be given, if we want to fight for the better of the world, but the beginning of making the world better comes from me being a proud Jew, being proudly connected to my people, and then I can make the world better. Okay, dear friends, if you have any questions or want to hear about our struggle in the Soviet Union or about today's challenges which many young Jews face in America, Israel, or Europe, I'll be more than glad to answer.
Thank you very much. Some questions have reached us, and one of the questions is towards your time in prison. Since it wasn't possible to communicate, how did you operate?
Well, you know, I spent 9 years in prison in quite an isolation, but the 1.5 year of interrogations was an absolute isolation. And the KGB, during these interrogations, of course, tried to convince me that I am alone, everybody is arrested. That is the end of all the human rights and Zionist activity in the Soviet Union, that the world jury is afraid even to mention my name or the names of the other activists because we are accused in espionage. And I had to convince myself that all this is nonsense. I was absolutely sure that Jewish people don't stop their struggle for my release even for one moment. And it happened that I was right. And I was imagining all those demonstrations which are taking place at this time, and all this pressure which Jewish communities are organizing on their governments in order to press Soviet Union. And the imagined world which was in my head happened to be the real one, and not the world that KGB tried to impose on me. And in more specific ways, especially when you are in punishing cell, and I spent years in a solitary confinement and 405 days in the punishing cell, which is a very tough place. There is nothing to write or to read, and very cold, and no warm clothes, 3 cups of water and 3 pieces of bread a day. And in addition to imagining, to reminding yourself why you're there, what an important struggle, global struggle you're part of. And that's why it is important not to give up and not to say yes to KGB. I had to entertain myself. So I was playing chess in my head. Chess is my great hobby. I like to play chess simultaneously. I like to play chess blind without looking at the board, also simultaneously. And here I knew how important this hobby is when you can play thousands of chess games in your head, when you win all of them, when you improve your game in the next game, and you're becoming better and better. So instead of degrading intellectually what KGB tried to do with you, you feel that you're strong and that the struggle continues. That's all.
Thank you so much. It's just giving me personally goosebumps to hear your story. Another question reached us. How was it for you to meet after this experience with high politicians, for example, with Reagan, and afterwards, after years, with Putin?
Well, even when you're meeting with high politicians, you have to remember they also are people who have important functions, who can have influence, and you are interested to promote some ideas. With President Reagan, it was very easy because that was the president who declared the cold Soviet Union evil empire when we were in prison. And we heard about it from the Soviet newspaper condemning Reagan for this. And we, political prisoners in the Soviet Union, were so enthusiastic that finally the leader of the free world understands the real nature of that country. For us, it was clear this regime, not only it's evil, it is very weak from inside because it spends all its efforts to control hundreds of millions of people, of their brains. And so if only the West understands the real nature of this regime, it will be destroyed. So, and when I finally met Reagan soon after I was released from prison and thanked him for all what he did and told him about how important was his evil empire speech in the prison, he called everybody and said, listen to this guy. You remember what you were telling me? In fact, he was condemned. He was told never to say such things. It's so non-diplomatic. And but he happened to be right. And his moral position, moral understanding of the good and evil in this world gave a lot of strength that I believe was an important part of the victory of the free world of communism. As to Putin, it was, of course, it was different, but Putin tried to show that now it is new Russia with new attitudes. His first meeting with me when he was the head of FSB, he proposed me to see the archives of my own case. He said that he believes it was a big mistake that Soviet Union tried to prevent Jews from having independent Jewish life, and he is going to change it. And I have to say, many years passed after our first meetings with him, and I can say a lot of criticism about him as a human rights activist. No doubt he took Russia back from the democratic development, and it's very unfortunate and very sad. But as a Jewish activist, I have to say what he promised then, that Jewish communities will be able to develop freely in Russia as Jewish communities, and that he will never try to stop connection between Jews of Israel and Jews of the Soviet Union, of Russia. He keeps his word on this. So I have mixed feelings. On one hand, today he definitely is bad for democracy. On the other hand, he keeps his word on letting the Jews in the Russia to have a free Jewish life.
Thank you so much. Another question about politics. You were the head of the Ministry of Jerusalem and the Diaspora until 2013, Ministry of Information and Diaspora. Why these affairs of Jerusalem and Diaspora are connected in one ministry, and what tasks are related to this post and which challenges?
Well, you know, there are many unnatural connections when in Israel government we are sharing our powers because of different types of coalitions. But this connection between Jerusalem and diaspora was extremely natural for me, because if there is one word which unites everybody. That's Jerusalem. When in my trial, the judges, just before giving me a sentence, which could be death sentence, said, what you want to say to the court in your last word? I said to the court, I have nothing to say, because you're going on to read the paper which was prepared for you. But to my people, I'm saying next year in Jerusalem, because I thought if there is a phrase which will be like an oath, which will connect me with all those Jews while I'll be in prison, that is the dream about Jerusalem, prayer about Jerusalem. And when I went to bring Jews from Ethiopia on Operation Shlomo in 1991, there was not a one word which I could understand they were saying. But when in the airplane, they were told, we are about Jerusalem, because they start shouting, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. And you see how in thousands of years, that is the word which kept connecting us. So this connection between Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the state of Israel and the Jewish people, and diaspora is definitely concepts which are very close to my heart and are connected to one another.
Thank you for answering this very complex question. Now a question about your personal experience during doing Aliyah. How was it for you to arrive in Israel personally, and how quickly did you integrate in the society?
Well, look, for me, it's very difficult to compare my experience, because the morning which started in Soviet prison, then I was taken to Germany, then I was taken from Eastern Germany, from Eastern Berlin to Western Berlin, crossed the Blinker Bridge, then the small airplane with my wife waited, and I saw my wife first time after 12 years. And then we went straight to Israel, and together with all the people of Israel, we are celebrating the end of this day near the Kotel. So I know personally what it is to be taken straight from hell and brought to the paradise. And that's how I felt. And of course, when you're in the paradise, when you're in the heavens, you can only go down for 30 years more, 30 years. I'm going down more to the earth, and I still feel that I'm in paradise, and I enjoy every day that I, with my family, with my children, grandchildren, with all my people are spending here.
Another personal question. How big is your family? Someone wants to know.
Well, look, we wanted once with Vitaly, then Natasha in Russia, we wanted to have 12 children. But because then we had this interruption for 12 years, and we were separated, in fact, next day after our marriage. So when I came, we had 2 daughters, but great kids. And from the age of 12, I was telling them, we are old parents, we lost a lot of time, we need grandchildren. They were saying, Father, but we have to get married. I was telling, it's your problem, I want grandchildren. They got message, at the age of 20, they got married. Now we have 7 grandchildren, 2 daughters, 2 sons-in-law, and hopefully our family will keep growing.
Another question regarding the nowadays politics in Israel. What is your perspective on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Do you feel frustrated?
Of course, I feel frustrated that we don't have a peace. I feel very sorry for how miserable the life of Palestinians, that 5th generation of Palestinians lives in the refugee camps. But I ask who can be blamed for this? No doubt the Palestinian leadership. And I think the one big mistake which was done from the very beginning, when we permitted to the leaders of the terror to become leaders of the peace process. When Yasser Arafat was brought back from Tunis, and Yasser Arafat had never desired to accept Jewish state. In fact, those who follow him today also are absolutely against the idea of Jewish state. And the real peace will grow only from bottom up. And I do hope each time that there will be enough forces in Palestinian society to support really independent, free Palestinian society, which bring to real cooperation and real peace. I believe that in the end, Palestinians deserve to have all the rights that I have, but they should not ever have opportunity to destroy us. And that is the main question, how we can give them opportunity or to stop being responsible for their lives, but give them opportunity to have their independent life without being destroyed by the terrorist state which can emerge. And that's a big challenge. And I always try to be optimistic, but I think that our leaders, as well as the leaders of the free world, have to understand that it goes together. The real peace can be built only based on the real freedom of both societies, of Israel and Palestine.
Thank you so much for these important words. Staying with the Israeli politics, lately there were a lot of challenges with forming the government. How are your views on that right now?
Well, look, it's very unfortunate that we had 3 rounds of elections. I was from the very beginning big supporter of unity government. I believe that in view of all the challenges, international challenges, internal, we need unity government. I was glad that it was created. It's still, though it was created, it's a very complicated government. It still has to learn how to act as a one government. I hope we'll go through this early stage as soon as possible, as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much for a very diplomatic answer. Another question about the activism. The BDS movement pretended to be a part of the universal fight against discrimination. What could students, I guess, in the diaspora do about it?
Well, look, BDS movement, which is Boycott Israel movement, is not a threat to Israel economy. And it's not even a threat to Israel state. But it is a real threat to divide between Israel and Jewish people. And I was on hundreds of the campuses, universities in America and Europe. And I saw how big is the pressure on young Jews to be embarrassed by their connection to Israel, or to be explained that that is dangerous for your career if you will continue demonstrating your sympathy and support to Zionism. And I think Jews who don't live under KGB, under communist regime, they live in the free society. They have to understand and to feel that they have no reasons to be afraid or to be ashamed of their connection to Israel. They should be only proud of their connection to Israel. In fact, that's the mission which all our shlichim, when I was the head of Jewish agency, I'm glad that we increased greatly the number of our messages from Israel to Jewish communities. That is the message. The message is we should not be, we can be critical about many things. Each of us is critical about many things which happen in Israel, but in general, we should be very proud of our great achievement having a Jewish democratic state in today's world. That's changed the history of Jews, that's changed the history of the world. And if you keep being proud, no boycott movement, the boycott movements will be powerless. They can do nothing to Israel. If they can do nothing to the soul of Jewish people, they are helpless. Thank you very much. I was very glad of this opportunity to talk to you. And I hope that soon conditions will permit and all of you will visit us in Israel.
Thank you so much for your honesty and openness and diverse perspectives on all the questions were brought up from our audience. Thank you to our audience for asking the questions and feeling open about it. And stay tuned and join our further parts of our program.